Join me as we talk all things true crime.
Made contact and shattered.
The missing 4-year-old. The parents have called in and advised that the mother has went through a wall, came home, now they can't find her.
Turn it over to another agency.
Chad, where are Lori's kids? They've been missing for 4 months. You have nothing to say?
4 were stabbed multiple times and were likely asleep during the attack. Some had defensive wounds.
Most of them had just like one that was the lethal stab wound.
Oh, what a tangled web we weave. Once I told a lie, and I told my family, I had to keep lying.
What's your, is it demon?
We haven't cleared anybody.
Hi, everybody. If I could just have a moderator, Johnny, let me know if you can hear me okay. We are starting our first live stream on the Sebastian Rogers case. It's a case I've been following very closely, just haven't had a chance to go live on it. So we've shared his flyer, we've shared updated reports on my community tab and in my Facebook group. Okay, thank you so much, AV. I really appreciate you letting me know, and Mel Mac and everyone else. Thank you for being here, High Pointer Lover, and everyone joining us. Have you guys in chat heard of this case? So if you've heard of it, I'm curious. If you've seen this boy's face, let me know. Actually, let me pull up his face while we are opening up. I'm going to be sharing a lot of tabs, so bear with me. We also had breaking news. If you guys were with me when I covered the Dylan Rounds case, they have actually located his body. So with the help of the suspect, James Brenner, he has decided to cooperate enough to tell authorities where the body is. So that's great in that case, because we definitely covered it on this channel. And we will continue to follow the updates. It kind of went cold because they needed to find his body. So now they've found it. So have you seen this boy's face? He is 15 years old. He is a child with autism. He's been missing over a month, 40 something days we are going on. So, you know, as much as I like to have an open mind and stay positive, I do think that the statistics are not working in our favor right now. Again, I hate to be negative, but I'm just being a little bit realistic. It's not anything that, you know, he could still be alive, and we hope and pray that he is, for sure. We really do. 44 days. Okay, thank you. That is how long this boy has been missing. Literally vanished without a trace. That's why I've sort of fallen down this rabbit hole. You know, kids just don't disappear. There's always a reason. There's always a story. And yeah, we're sending prayers, especially for his biological father, Seth, who has been out there, boots on the ground, day in and day out, has stopped working his real job so that he can put in all his efforts into finding his son. Now, when I bring up the parents, I think for those who have followed this case, you're kind of under the impression that for the most part, public scrutiny is very high when it comes to the biological mother and the stepfather. So the stepfather's name is Chris. The mother's name is Katie. Right, Tony, nobody just vanishes. And from my understanding, the dogs did not pick up his scent outside the house. So at first there was theories that he ran away. There's been theories he was taken. That would be very hard to do with the fact that he not only left all his shoes at home, but the dogs did not pick up a scent. So if he's barefoot or if he's, you know, in his socks, that scent is even closer to the earth for the dogs to pick up. They picked up nothing. So I believe they went inside the house. Of course, his scent was found in the house. If any of these facts are wrong, please let me know. Again, this has been a very quick case. And when I say that, I mean information has just been coming out all over the place. Social media is on top of this. They're digging up history between biological father, the biological mother, the stepfather. All this stuff has been coming out. So I'm trying to condense all the updates into this live stream. So bear with me. So let's start with a little bit of background. And that's going to require me sharing a little bit from a court TV segment. So this came out 5 days ago. I'm only going to play a few seconds because Vinny kind of gives us the update or, the background. So for those who haven't been following this case, this will kind of cue you in on some updates. And also, if you guys could just hit that like button, the likes help get this story out there. And this is a missing child case. So let's get his story. Let's get his face out there. Hit that like button, not for me, but for Sebastian and his family. Okay. So again, I've tried to keep an open mind while everyone is bashing the biological mother and the stepfather. We're going to come to a conclusion, I think, by the end of this stream that something's just not sitting right with those two. So here we go.
February 26th in Hendersonville, Tennessee. It was a Monday morning. Katie Proudfoot says she woke up at about 6 in the morning to get her son Sebastian ready for school. But when she went to his room, he wasn't there. Katie quickly went around the house and could not find him. Where was Sebastian? Panic quickly set in. Katie says she called police and searched around the neighborhood and at school and could not find him. She says his shoes were still at home. His phone was still there too, but a flashlight was missing. Where did Sebastian go? Did he leave in the middle of the night? Why would he leave? These are all questions that have no answers. Police say they don't know where he is. They don't know what happened. All of Sebastian's parents have cooperated, his mother, Katie Proudfoot, his stepfather, Chris Proudfoot, and his dad, Seth Rogers. They also say there's no sign of foul play. But people don't just vanish. Tonight, we speak live with Sebastian's dad. What does he know? What does he suspect? Then we'll also listen to what Sebastian's mom and stepdad have said. Does it all make sense? Tonight, as investigators continue their search, we continue our investigation into the mysterious disappearance of Sebastian Rogers.
Okay, so I hope that kind of gives those who haven't really followed this case a very small background information on it, minute and 20 seconds of it at least. There's still a lot to unpack. So I'm going to change up my screens. Nancy Grace has been on top of this case. Again, she's really not my favorite, but I have to say her aggressive style of interviews actually, I think, has worked in our favor in this. Hi, Amy in Boston. Good to see you. Has worked in our favor in this case, specifically because she kind of asks the questions, you know how Nancy is, and she's asking the right questions to Chris, the stepfather, and the mother. So we're going to get back to this, but I do want to share Nancy Grace's most current interview. We also need to share that, they've searched waters, areas, ponds. They've gone over the same radius of search areas that they did in week 1. As far as I know, it took the parents, I think, a week to speak out. Now, I do want to read this post. It's from a true crime group that I'm in. It's not a Sebastian Rogers group. It's just about true crime in general. And the admin in the group is very knowledgeable on this case. I respect his research and his opinion. So I think that I'll start before I read Nancy's. I'm going to read his post. He's been following this very, very closely. Sebastian Rogers, this was posted 2 days ago. Sebastian Rogers has been missing for 6 weeks now. This is why I think both parents are guilty in some way, even more so than the stepfather. So this is interesting. Even more so the stepfather. So I think he's specifically talking about the mother and the stepfather, not Seth. Seth is the biological father. Mother and stepfather were silent the first week. When they broke their silence, they did not indicate guilty knowledge of death nor knowledge of Sebastian's whereabouts. The mother did not call out to her missing son, pleading for help from the public while giving a description of his appearance and behaviors. This is contrary to maternal instincts. She broke the silence when the public criticism became strong. They indicated withheld information and a coordinated narrative with scripted and rehearsed language. They exhibited an acute need to present a happy home. I love you. That's an example he's saying, indicating to the contrary, contention, altercations, etc. So he's referring to statements that have come out on social media by, people close to the family who have said, Chris, the stepfather, was abusive. Sebastian was afraid of him, all that. But he's saying at first when they came out, they made everything seem like it was rainbows and roses at home. In more interviews, they showed a priority in defending themselves rather than expressing concern for Sebastian. Stepfather showed himself as an angry, controlling manipulator. Eventually, he indicated a belief that Sebastian was not likely alive with past tense references. He derided Sebastian repeatedly. Stepfather enjoyed the verbal confrontations in the interviews. Some of Stepfather's history has come out. That he might be violent or abusive didn't come as a surprise, to be honest. This gave insight into what Sebastian lived with and what may have led to him going, quote, out the door, showing its relevance to the case. While his stepson is missing, he portrayed himself repeatedly as the victim, showing no care over Sebastian's plight. Instead, on the fifth marriage, dispensed marital and parenting advice. So, of course, this is this guy's opinion. His repeated interviews use the language of physicality and confrontation, a dangerous combination for an autistic stepson. Sebastian's mother and stepfather's language did not indicate guilty knowledge of Sebastian's death, nor his whereabouts. Sebastian's mother and stepfather's language indicates deception and that they concealed what happened to cause Sebastian to be out the door that night. They have coordinated this account. They coordinated the timing of the call to the sheriff's department, which was likely to be delayed. Stepfather controlled the call as well, rather than the mother directing calls to 911. They are responsible for Sebastian going out the door. And of course, this is this guy's opinion. Somebody also wrote, not only this, but they refused to search for him. They stated they needed to stay home just in case he came home. Then after a week or two, they went to dinner. Then the next day they left in their RV stating he was going to work. In the Nancy Grace interview, he stated at his first job was up in the air. Then when she questioned where they were, he stated that they left for his job. He works in Memphis, but they were spotted in Mississippi. Both the bio dad and mom took polygraphs, and Nancy Grace asked his stepdad to take one, and he said, okay. When it came time to take it, he refused to take it. So I've also heard this sort of reminds me of the Summer Wells case as far as the parents going out on YouTube to do interviews. Chris also stated in one of the first social media interviews before he was on like mainstream that he and Katie both took polygraphs and passed them. So then it comes out that actually, no, Katie was the only one who took it. She passed it. Again, I don't put much weight into polygraphs because they are not admissible in court. And also, I mean, while an investigation is going on, the cops, while they collect evidence or wait for more incriminating evidence, they could surely lie to Katie, the mother, and say, yep, you passed, while they know that some of her answers were sketchy and that they need to keep an eye on her and that they're building a case. So I'm not saying that she didn't really pass the polygraph. I'm just saying, in my opinion, I think that I'll take that whole, yes, I passed it with a grain of salt, because they could most certainly lie about somebody passing a polygraph while they build a case. So people think him refusing the polygraph is a red flag. Some people think that that's, his right to do because, again, it's not admissible, and all that. Some parents, biological or not, should not be parents. we've heard the most atrocious things through the grapevine about this case. The mother was in the Navy. She's an MMA. She's trained in MMA, mixed martial arts. I've heard that the father was abusive, but had more of a better relationship with Sebastian than the mother. I've also heard the stepfather was making Sebastian wear diapers because he was having accidents. The father has come out claiming that Sebastian at one point was SA'd by an older kid, and that unfortunately the mother and the stepfather put him in a situation where he wasn't safe. And hello, Melanie, and everyone else who's joined. We're going to get into all that as much as we can tonight. And thank you so much for the super sticker, Sherry. I really appreciate you and everyone being here. Hey, Debbie Fox, good to see you. Yeah, and that's the thing, is the polygraph is not 100% accurate. So we don't really know what this whole quote, "she passed," really means. Yeah, and that's the other thing, is like, why would you lie about taking a poly and then passing it? Obviously we're going to find out that you didn't take it, but you've come out on the internet saying, yes, we both passed it. So that's weird in itself. The mother has also said something along the lines that she believed he was taken. He also has no history of running away. I know that some kids tend to run away, and they have a history of that. Sebastian never had one. So it's just a very strange case. There's things that have come out that have been retracted, like they found glasses that were his, and then they're not his. So just a lot of weird stuff going on in this case. Hopefully we can iron out as much as we can do it. Mo, there's no updates as far as I know. I checked X before we came on. Last we knew over the weekend is they were going over some places that they had searched previously. They have also searched a landfill. So a lot of people were wondering, why are you searching a landfill? Other people, including a former FBI agent on Court TV, said that that's sort of just protocol. Like, you want to make sure you check every place in a missing child case, just to mark it off. Other people have thought that's, weird that they would just go to a landfill and look for him there. So there's just a lot of strange things going on. Also, Secret Service aided in the search as well in the investigation, and people wondered why. A lot of times feds can get involved if they have like a good rapport with, let's say, TBI, who's I think leading this investigation. Is TBI? Maybe it's a local. Either way, I know TBI is on this case, but Secret Service might have just, lended a hand and said, we got extra time and people to lend our resources if you need us. So let's see what Nancy has to say.
Last hours, the bio dad and grandparents of missing autistic boy Sebastian Rogers.
And this came out today, a couple hours ago.
Hold a vigil where everyone vows that Sebastian will be brought home safe.
Hey,
and sound.
Alex. I love
Will
the
he?
picture.
I'm Nancy Grace. This is Crime Stories. Thank you for being with us here at Crime Stories as we continue joining in the search for Sebastian. First of all, take a listen to this. Have the two of you taken a polygraph?
I have.
I have not.
Would you be willing to?
I've offered and volunteered on many occasions to take a polygraph, and I was told directly by law enforcement, because of my whereabouts, I did not need one.
I understand. Ms. Proudfoot, did you pass your polygraph?
I did.
That's not exactly what has been stated before by Sebastian Rogers' stepfather, Mr. Proudfoot. Listen. And Mr. Proudfoot, you have volunteered to take a poly?
Yes, ma'am.
If I were to set up a poly for you, would you take it?
Name the place and time, ma'am. I'll be there.
Joining me in All-Star panel to make sense of what we're hearing right now. But first to Dave Mack, crimeonline.com investigative reporter. Dave Mack, isn't it true that crimeonline.com did set up a polygraph?
Absolutely true.
And what happened?
Chris Proudfoot told us that he could not take it now. He wanted to, but he can't because the TBI told him not to.
It's my understanding to Cheryl McCollum joining us. Cheryl McCollum, founder and director of the Cold Case Research Institute, forensics expert, and host of Zone 7 podcast. Cheryl, it's my understanding that specifically Sebastian's stepfather said he could no longer do interviews, including with us, because he had been instructed so by the TBI. And Jackie, correct me if I'm wrong, that they did not want any of his interviews to interfere with the investigation, and that even though he had agreed to do our polygraph, he now says that the TBI is going to set up their own polygraph, and he can't take our polygraph until after that. And once he does that, then, quote, we'll take it from there. What do you make of it?
And I'm curious what you guys make of that too in chat and those on replay. Do you believe that TBI would tell the stepfather, like, no, we advise you not to take it? Because I don't know. It's strange. I want to hear this woman's opinion as well.
You know, you and I always go back to Mark Class. If you want to make sure that the law enforcement has everything they need to get rid of looking at you, you can do that. He can set up a private polygraph through an attorney. He can take yours. He can demand that TBI give him one so that they can stop focusing on him and this polygraph business and move on and find out where Sebastian is at, period.
I mean, Cheryl McCollum, you and I can go right now and pay for a polygraph. They'd be happy to take our money. Hey, just put it on a credit card and take a polygraph.
TBI would be happy to accept those results. A polygraph is a polygraph. And the examiner, that's who you're relying on. So you've got somebody that's going to be willing to testify and put their reputation on the line. Again, he could make this happen today if he wanted to.
Let's go straight.
Now, not only has he stated that TBI, told Nancy Grace, oh yeah, name the time and place and I'll be there to take it. And then, when it comes down to it, oh no, TBI told me not to. Keep in mind, like I said earlier, he straight up told a YouTube channel, yes, Katie and I, the mother, both took them and we passed. Okay, so why is the story continuously changing on every little thing in this case? That's the other thing that I kind of wanted to say. Like, other channels have pointed out, in this interview, they said this. In this interview, they changed it to that. And then in this interview, they said this. It's been out there for this past 44 days of inconsistencies and stories changing. And now here's a chance for us to say, like, this whole polygraph thing has changed. We heard, what is the name of the channel? Duchess, I think, something to do with Duchess, where he told her straight up, yep, we took them and we passed. And then he tells Nancy Grace, like, no, Katie took it and she passed, but I haven't. It's just, what is going on? Why won't he just take it? That, as much as I say I don't hold much weight into polygraphs, I don't like the idea of his story changing so many times about taking it and passing it and lying about taking one and passing it. Like, that adds a whole other layer to him just saying, like, no, I'd rather just not take one.
Straight out to Joseph Scott Morgan, professor of forensics, Jacksonville State University, author of Blood Beneath My Feet on Amazon, and star of a hit series, Body Bags with Joe Scott Morgan. Joe Scott, thank you for being with us. You know what? This is like static in my ear.
And I agree, Mike. That has also been something that was strange. Not only did they not call 911, they just called the sheriff's number right away. That was kind of odd to me. It makes me wonder, like, did they not want certain things on record for that 911 can, like, do as far as, your location and all that, where the call takes place? I don't know. I just thought that was weird that they just called the sheriff's office and not 911. And then I also thought it was weird that very soon after he went missing, they pack up and leave the house. To me, that's weird. Another thing that's weird, since Marky brought up Letitia, and yes, her polygraph was the best. I totally agree there. Something similar to Letitia and Alex Erickson, if you're still listening, and thank you, Johnny, for the tea. She, at one point, the parents hear the stepfather and the mother do an interview, and they just show their hands. Their whole interview with this news station is just zoomed in of their hands as they're answering questions. And it just reminded me, and a lot of people who have been following this, of Letitia's interview where she does with the media and she decides she doesn't want to be on camera, so they just show the back of her head. So just a similar, something similar. Not calling the mother here Letitia, but just saying. Alex said, I probably wouldn't take one for the media. I also wouldn't say I did if I didn't, but I wouldn't take one for the media. I can see his hesitancy in taking it with Nancy Grace, blowing things up on the media, making a spectacle of him taking one might not be like something that someone like Chris would really want to do. And other people might not be willing to do, have it all aired out like that. It's just interesting to me that he lied to people saying that they did take one and that they passed, and then, promising Nancy that he'd be willing to take one, and then he goes back on it and blames it on TBI. Just say like, no, I don't feel like I want to be a part of this whole like charade on the media. I'd rather just take it with law enforcement, or I've been advised by a legal expert like not to take one at all. Something different, but his stories all over the place is just unsettling. Mike said, all the stepdad said, speaking on behalf of both of them, lie detectors have been taken. They both took that. They told him no need for him. He doesn't need to prove anything to Nancy. So, and that's the thing too. It's like, why do it for Nancy? I kind of get why somebody might be like, okay, I get that I'm bringing you a lot of views and all that, Nancy, but you're not going to turn my story into this whole public spectacle. So I guess I could see why somebody would tell Nancy, like, no, on second thought, not going to do it. But it doesn't sit right with me, the stories that have changed about it,
Years, because I know tick tock, as long as we focus on the stepfather and the mother, Mr. and Mrs. Proudfoot, I'm losing time. If by some stretch of the imagination, Sebastian is still alive, if he's alive, he won't be much longer. What do the stats show? What is your opinion? I need it, and I need it now, Joe Scott.
Yeah, the biggest thing that we're looking at is this idea of time. We're talking about a young man that went missing back in February, Nancy, late February. And as we move down that timeline, the odds are stacked against him. I think one of the most important pieces that's kind of arisen out of this, other than all of the comments that have been made to this point relative to polygraphs and those sorts of things, are those eyeglasses. And I love the shot the producers put up of him standing in front of that rack of eyeglasses, because that's going to tell the tale. I think if they can specifically tie those to him, that's very important. They can take that script off of those glasses, determine if they are his.
I don't think they're his glasses, Joe Scott. I don't think they're his glasses.
At this point in time, you have to work with what you have. If they're not his, then that points us down a different road, doesn't it? And sometimes,
okay, let's go with
So as far as I know, and thank you so much, Mike, and you're fine with your opinions and all that. I love them. And I've always respected everyone's different opinions. In fact, Mo, she says, anyone else in my corner, I'm thinking they have nothing to do with it. Am I on a lifeboat stranded at sea by myself? I have mixed feelings. I definitely think there's something off, but the mother for me is hard to read. I don't know how you guys feel about the mother. I also feel like I've seen different variations of her in different interviews. Like she's almost like chameleon-ish. I don't know if you guys see that or feel that way, but the mother comes off as different depending on who she's speaking with. I'm hoping I can kind of show you a little bit of that in some of the clips I show. But again, the law enforcement, I believe, has come out saying that those glasses were not his. So that's sort of what they're talking about at this point. Again, thank you again, Mike, for the super chat. And hello, Unsolved Crimes Uncovered. Good to see you. And everyone else who's joined, thanks so much for being here. Alex says, I'm not sure if they do or not, but currently giving grace to them because I know for sure I wouldn't want to be in their shoes. Right. And hello, Roxanne, good to see you. And that would be the worst thing to do, is kind of jump on the bandwagon of everybody. Because I'm telling you, I've seen it not only on YouTube, I've seen it, like I said, in those Facebook groups. That admin whose post I read, I mean, he does a lot of good research, and I respect his research. And he's kind of iffy about things that the stepfather and mother are saying. So it's like, I don't want to be swayed by everyone else's opinion. So I've kind of sat back before doing a live stream on this case, but something just kind of is off. Again, like I said, the mother is very hard to read for me. Yeah, Skinny says, funny, when someone lies consistently, I tend to not believe them. That's the thing too, is their stories, you cannot deny, you really can't, that their stories have changed. Usually when you tell the truth, it's the same consistency. And Ashley agrees, and it's good to see you. Thanks for being here.
Let's go with they're not his glasses. And I'll tell you why I'm saying that, Joe Scott. I was thrilled. I mean, you might want to jump in on this, Cheryl. Remember, we're not having high tea at Windsor Castle, but it's a sad day when you're excited, when you're thrilled. You think you find a missing boy's glasses. Why was I thrilled? Because it was a clue for a moment. And then the TBI confirmed they're not his glasses. So I see where you're going, Joe Scott, but it's a sad day when we're all thrilled to find a pair of beat up glasses on the side of the road. But I was. So where does that leave me, Joe Scott? As we're all like, take a poly, take a poly. Why won't he take a poly? What really happened? Was he at work? Was he not at work? While we're all gnashing our teeth and switching our tails trying to figure out about Mr. Proudfoot, if this kid, this child is out there with his autism kicking in, giving him problems, what's going to happen? The likely scenario, Joe Scott, as we're spinning our wheels on Proudfoot.
Yeah, if this is, we're talking about Hendersonville, Tennessee, Nancy, which is 10 miles outside of Nashville, but, really quickly up there, that area.
Wasn't Chris at work should be easy to prove to police at least. I've been hearing that. I've also heard theories that their 3-hour phone call that he had with Katie that night was just an alibi, and that he wasn't in his location and she might not have been in her location, and that they just had their phones on while they met up and did nefarious things with whatever happened to Sebastian. Again, theory, speculation. Hello, Scottish Queen. Good to see you. Not factual. They're claiming Chris told his ex-wife, Sebastian, something happened to him between 12:30 and like 6:45 in the morning or something like that. He's been kind of carrying the narrative this whole time, and so has Katie, about, his last proof of life. So that's the other thing. Last proof of life, from my understanding, is them at Texas Roadhouse, Katie and him at Texas Roadhouse. The server remembers seeing them. Obviously, he would be on camera there. They could look up credit card information and all that and confirm that. There's also a rumor that a neighbor saw somebody bringing out the trash after that, but the neighbor is saying police told her it was Sebastian. Whether police did or not, I don't know. Haven't heard them come out and say, like, yes, we know that he was on a neighbor's camera taking out the trash. Like, we have not heard that from law enforcement. And I think even if they told the neighbor, like, yes, that was Sebastian, like I said, cops can lie to protect the integrity of an investigation. So if they want the public or they want people close to the case to think that that we saw him, that was him, they could certainly lie and do that. But I'm not including the walk to the trash area at the road as Sebastian's last proof of life. I'm counting Texas Roadhouse as the last time we know that he was alive, or at least around, not missing, I should say. And thank you so much, Sunshine, for that. The other thing too is I seen Unsolved Crimes said something like maybe he was lured away. Anything is possible. I'm also thinking, what if there was a confrontation with him and his mother in the car, and he decides to open the door and storm off? I think that that's also a possibility. I personally don't think that he was taken away from the house, or that a stranger came to the house and took him away. solely because the dogs didn't pick up his scent, unless he was carried. And now brings us to this whole thud that the mother heard. In certain interviews, she said she yelled at him, I don't care what you're doing in there. Just, go to bed. Another interview with Nancy, she doesn't say that she yelled that to him and that she didn't check on him. So those little things have changed in her story as well. And I believe that it could also be, again, this is a possibility, the thud and him taking the trash out are narratives that Katie, the mother, has given us. And I believe that those could be possibly fake proof of lives. So she's claiming he took the trash out so he was still alive, and that she heard a thud in his room around bedtime and that he was still alive. But we honestly don't know if those things are true. So are those real proof of life events, or are those just Katie's narrative so that we all think that he was still alive at that time?
Area becomes very rural. And so if he has wandered off or been taken off in any number of directions, his ability or survivability is greatly diminished here. And
so Joseph Scott Morgan is pretty much talking about how bad the statistics are. She did yell back, but in her interview with Nancy Grace, she says something like, she doesn't say I don't care what you're doing in there, just go to, she changes her story. It's just altered slightly. And it's what's going on here? Also the whole, if he ran away or if he was lured away, the shoes aspect. So he's taken out without shoes, definitely possible. If he's lured away, you would think, wouldn't he grab shoes? The emphasis on the shoes is he had gotten a previous incident with fire ants. So he was very much against being barefoot or something like that because of a history that he had dealt with fire ants. So yeah, they change it up. Stop changing the story up. That's why people are wondering what's going on. Yeah, I know, Phil. I'm right there with you. There's so many times where I'm okay, just check yourself. Not everything is bad, but at the same time, there's just things that kind of slap you in the face, like stories changing, where it's don't be so naive, Amber. People don't change their story when they're telling the truth.
And what the police are doing right now is, if you think about the last known location of him, that's the center of the target. And they're working from concentrically to eccentrically. They're moving out in these big circles, but it's such a broad, densely wooded area. This is a Herculean task, to say the least. I think that some of the answers are going to rest in the idea that whoever had control over him, his comings and goings, we're talking about a kid that has been diagnosed with autism, whoever had control over his comings and goings, their electronics need to be tracked, Nancy. Those ideas of where did they go at those times when he was last seen alive. And that's going to be one of the threads that you're going to want to pull in this investigation.
Cheryl McCollum, host of Zone 7, is a forensic expert. As you know, Joe Scott Morgan, death investigator. Cheryl, you've had quite a lot to say online. What about now? Cat got your tongue? Because I don't like that. You're pretty bold when nobody's questioning you. But what about now? I want to hear your analysis.
Here's my problem. Their statements. You've got inconsistencies. As soon as somebody changes their story at all, they should become the focus, period. Mom has said different things. Now you've got a stepdad that looks like he's co-signing with everything that she says, but he allegedly wasn't there. So how can he agree with anything that she's saying? You've got mom saying she heard a thud. I don't like that word. That sounds like a body hitting the floor. When people use the word thud, that's not, sounded like he hit the wall, sounded like something.
No, it's never a good thing. It's usually preceded by an adjective, sickening, a sickening thud.
Right. And Nancy, you've got other things. You've got mom saying he went to the end of the driveway to put out the trash. And then you've got law enforcement searching a landfill. They're searching lakes. They're searching ponds. If you're watching and paid attention to law enforcement, it does not seem to me that they are looking to recover a child alive. They are searching for remains. You and I both know, and Joe Scott knows, when a child goes missing, the first 3 hours are critical. We're at 6 weeks. 6 weeks that this child has not been seen or heard from.
Okay, hold on. Why are you saying, Cheryl McCollum, that you believe they don't expect to find Sebastian alive based on their actions? I'm talking about LA law enforcement.
They're searches. They're searching landfills, lakes, ponds. That is not indicative of somebody that is alive. And again, you've got a child that has gone 6 weeks without his medicine, 6 weeks without food that we know of. He didn't have a source, no shoes. And mama herself says, oh, a flashlight's missing. Again, that's such an odd thing for her to know is missing until they show her video that looks like a flashlight. And then the stepdad says, well, we were sure hoping it was, but we're sad to report it wasn't a flashlight. Well, if you've got 2 flashlights out there, why are you glad that it's not that? That to me would signify that somebody was out there in the wee hours of the morning with 2 flashlights, meaning 2 separate people, the night your child went missing. I mean, it's just odd.
All right. And so when it comes to this flashlight video, I can show you on court TV what they're referring to. First, it was 2 people using flashlights. And then it came out that, no, this was actually the garbage truck. And those are the lights on the garbage truck. And then it came out like, nope, that's not the garbage truck. We can't tell you what it is. So again, another thing in the story that's like, what's going on? We heard her mention, you know, his shoes are still here, but a flashlight's missing. But we haven't heard her say that every pair of glasses that he owns is accounted for, you know? So it's kind of like, why wouldn't you have known what glasses were here and what are missing, like when it comes to that? Correct me if I'm wrong, but hasn't the description of his outfit changed as well? I don't know for sure, so don't quote me 100% there, but I swear there was something iffy about his outfit. Like either he went to bed wearing the same outfit he was in Texas Roadhouse in, or something like that. Let us know. Yeah, they can't tell us why about the flashlights, like what they were, I guess. And Pizza Chemist, thank you so much for gifting memberships and welcome to those members.
What do you make of a 3-hour conversation held between Mrs. Proudfoot and Mr. Proudfoot the night Sebastian disappears?
The 3-hour phone call bothers me because, again, that's a long time to be on the phone. And, you know, you're hearing your son supposedly, he's answering you supposedly during that time, but you don't go check on him at all. You know, did somebody leave their phone just on while they went and did something else? I don't know. But I agree with Joe Scott. The electronics are going to tell the story. When his mama first entertained the idea that somebody had him, what did she base that on? His phone's not missing. He didn't take shoes, didn't take clothes, didn't take money. Nothing on his cell phone, nothing on his computer says that he's been talking to anybody. I mean, she's entertaining something that we have no facts for.
Well,
Yeah, see, I knew there was something weird with the clothing. Thank you, Pointer Love. Yes, first it was a black sweatsuit and now it's black pants with a white stripe and a black shirt. So Mike says, last seen in black sweatpants, believe mom claims, different than eating out. Okay. So that should be something like when your child is missing and when there's a missing child case, like I shouldn't be 44 days later still wondering like, so wait, what was he wearing? Like that should be something that we all know. Like we knew for Summer Wells when she went missing, okay, what she was wearing. This case is weird because it's like, so wait, I thought they said this and then they changed it to that. Very much like Madeline Soto. She, you know, that outfit changed as well.
Concerned about the, and you're right, whenever I hear inconsistent statements, as I've discussed many, many times in front of juries, it's one thing to add or embellish your original statement because maybe you weren't asked the right questions first time around. Maybe you remembered something in addition, triggered by questions. But when you change your story, that's a problem. To Joe Scott Morgan joining us, professor at Jacksonville State University. Joe Scott, let's look at where the searches are being conducted.
Yeah.
We know the law enforcement search has been scaled back. I want to hear, since you are a death investigator, we all three have been on many, many searches for missing people and who we believe to be dead. I want to hear your analysis. What can we glean from looking at what law enforcement is doing?
Back to Cheryl's point about landfills and ponds. Ponds, or water bodies of water. You can think that, well, you have people that can just wander into these locations, okay? Particularly somebody that might be in a compromised state, like this young man, from a mental and a physical status at this point in time. But when you start to talk about landfills, Nancy, this is a rather dark thing. I've been to landfills multiple times conducting death investigations, and those are locations where we're talking about the discarding of remains. Now,
I have to unpause it for two things. For one, Allison, this is a good point. She said Seth, who's the father, texted TBI last night to ask them if the clothes Sebastian was wearing to Texas Roadhouse were accounted for. Would love to hear the answer to that. Yeah, that's a good question. Mike also asked another good question. If anyone in chat has the answer to this, I do not. In fact, I've had a hard time kind of putting this timeline together. How much time between getting home and the phone call to Chris? So this 3-hour phone call, when did that take place? How soon after they got home? I'd love to know that as well. And thank you again, and welcome to the new members. Thank you, Pizza Chemist.
Here's another interesting point: the fact that the landfill is all the way up.
You
in
mean he
Kentucky.
didn't just walk into a landfill and fall over?
No, and certainly not in Kentucky. This is specifically targeted. Now, from my understanding, is that landfill is used to serve this particular area. And landfills are very complex environments. They're gridded off. Essentially, they know where they're going to do dumpings.
Yeah, I think that 3-hour phone call is odd too. Skinny says, I probably talked to my husband on the phone for 3 hours when we were in our 20s dating. I think that's, accurate statement. Like, I'm wondering, how many other people, even if your husband or wife works out of town, are you going to sit there for 3 hours? This is also the same time frame where she's told everybody that she was studying, that she was reading, that she was laying in bed. So all these things are like taking place too that night. But she had time for a 3-hour phone call. It's just kind of weird. A lot of people are like wondering, like, was that a real phone call? Like, I'm thinking, much like other cases, like, was that just staged? Leave your phone here and leave it on and then go take care of something. Possible.
It's not like they randomly go into these locations and just back the truck up. They go to specific locations. But with landfills, they're highly complex, they're layered. And so as you begin to stack items in there, they then run over them with this heavy equipment. And it makes the going very, very tough. As a matter of fact,
Pointer Lover.
anything that gets in there begins to degrade and decompose very quickly. That's the purpose of it. And so that is not a good sign, Nancy. And the fact that they are searching a landfill is rather ominous to me.
Nancy, I want
to Dave Mack, crimeonline.com. No, I was just coming to you because I wanted to talk to you, Dave Mack, on two issues and whatever else you want to interject. Please, I need everybody's thoughts. One, I want to get from you any previous inconsistent statements as correctly stated by Cheryl McCollum, and two, allegations that Sebastian, this autistic boy, was molested have emerged. Let's start with the inconsistent statements very quickly.
From the very beginning, Nancy, Chris Proudfoot made statements in interviews online claiming, he actually said, somebody asked the question, was a polygraph taken and has it been passed? Yes. I didn't specify who or when, but what I can tell you, everything has been vetted completely. Polygraphs have come back as passed. So I'm confused as in why they are all wondering if myself, my wife, and the biological father took. Okay, we know that's a lie. We know that is absolutely a lie because of what he told you on your show.
But you're saying that that's what Proudfoot said, that he had taken a polygraph, he and his wife, and had been, quote, vetted. Okay. Yes, he did say that on a podcast. Go ahead.
Okay, and then we also have the belt. We have hitting Sebastian with the belt. I don't know if you caught this, but when Seth Rogers was on your show last week, when we were talking about the belt, he started crying. I saw later Seth referred to it as he wasn't aware of the corporal punishment that Chris Proudfoot was handing out to his son, to Seth Rogers' autistic son. And we pointed out that he Proudfoot claimed it was years ago, and it was one spank with the belt on his butt, but through clothing, which makes no sense to any parent in the history of mankind or any teacher at school that they would actually look into something through clothing like that. But they couldn't remember when, how long ago it was. And in another interview, he said 15, which means it had to have been in the last several months. So we've got a number of.
Didn't Sebastian turn 15 in December?
Correct. And it went missing February 26th.
So if he was 15 when he got a whack with a belt, that would have been in the last few months just before he disappears. So which one is true? Was it 3 years ago, or was it when he was 15 years old? Another question. Allegations that Sebastian was molested have now emerged. What can you tell us?
From Seth Rogers. Sebastian's biological father, Seth Rogers, said that when the Proudfoots, when Katie and Chris Proudfoot and Sebastian were living in an apartment in California several years ago, that Katie Proudfoot allowed a boy that was 5 years older than Sebastian to play with Sebastian, and the boy was 13. Sebastian was 8 at this time. She allowed, Seth Rogers said that Katie Proudfoot allowed a 13-year-old boy to play with Sebastian, who was 8, without any kind of involvement from Katie Proudfoot, and that during the time, this 13-year-old molested and raped Sebastian Rogers.
It seems the more we investigate, the murkier the facts become. This is what I know. Every day, literally every hour that Sebastian Rogers is missing is 1 hour closer to him being dead.
Sad but true. I mean, I hate to say it, but the statistics are not looking good. All right, so back to some previous interviews. This Court TV segment shows, the father, biological father. It's also going to show us the mother's interview with Chronicles of Olivia, just little things that I think are relevant that I want to play. I'm just looking through to see. All right, hold on. There's another one too that I want to play. Believe it's this one. Okay, yeah, this one. This one had gray hues on it. I didn't really agree with the gray hues theories he was coming out with, but still thought it was interesting. Okay, yeah. Let me switch it up. Again, thanks for bearing with me, guys, while we're just kind of pulling random things up. Again, there's a lot of fluidity in this case, a lot of different interviews, a lot of different channels have spoken to one parent or the other parent. The main thing that I can say is there are inconsistencies coming from the mother and the stepfather, and that is just hard to ignore. Pinky said, I couldn't figure out how they say no foul play, but looking in a landfill. So when they say no evidence of foul play, that doesn't mean there isn't foul play in their mind. They're just saying like, there's no blood. There's nothing that we've seen that we can see that is signaling this is suspicious. He must have been beaten or, it doesn't mean that you're clear. So when they say there's no signs of foul play, it just means that they haven't found like what they need to find. So I feel like I needed to emphasize that because people are like taking that as like, see, the parent, the mother and the stepfather, they're cleared. Like they said no signs of foul play. Like that's not what that means. It just means that there's no evidence. It doesn't mean that there's not detectives who are like, scratching their head and raising their eyebrow at certain things.
Inside this beautiful neighborhood in Hendersonville, Tennessee, there is an unsolved mystery. It was a Sunday night going into a Monday morning, and 15-year-old Sebastian Rogers was supposed to be inside his home sleeping. His mother, Katie Rogers, says he went to bed at 9, but was making some noise around 10, including a thud sound. Katie told him to go to sleep. She went to bed at midnight. Then at 6 a.m., Katie woke up. She went to his room to get him ready for school, but Sebastian was gone. She searched the house, and he was nowhere to be found. Sebastian's stepdad, Chris, was not home, and Sebastian's father was at work about 45 minutes away. Police responded and began trying to figure out what happened. That was February 26th. And now, more than a month later, no sign of Sebastian, no sign of foul play, and no answers about what happened to Sebastian. Tonight, we'll take a look at the neighborhood, the search areas. Where could he be? Then we'll take another look at Sebastian's parents. What did they say? What does their body language say? We'll bring in our experts as we continue our investigation into the mysterious disappearance of Sebastian Rogers.
I'm Vinny Politan. Thank you so much for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments. Where did he go? Where did Sebastian go? And did he go there by himself? Was he lured by someone? Did someone do something to him and take him somewhere? We don't know. We don't know. It's more than a month. He's 15 years old. He's a teenage boy with autism. I mean, could he conceivably on his own be that stealth if he's running away from home, running away from something that maybe was happening at home? Could he really sneak out without a trace? Could he go somewhere and not be seen? Could he survive? He didn't just vanish. He did not just vanish. That didn't happen.
All right, let me just fast forward a little bit. Again, Vinny's just going on his rant, saying the same thing we have. Things have looked weird. Why aren't they finding him?
The public's health, number one. Number two, it's a huge story locally, nationally. So they want to keep the public informed because they realize that they work for the public. And the Sumner County Sheriff's Office Chief Deputy Eric Craddock spoke with Nick Barris. Nick was on this show as well from Scripps News Nashville. And again, you know, you listen to every word they say. Listen to every word because they're not saying a lot. And what I'm going to play for you now is not a lot, but listen to every word.
I think in the absence of information, what we'll continue to do is go back over everything we've already done once, put a fresh set of eyes on it.
Any evidence of foul play?
We have not cleared anyone, but we have absolutely no evidence to support foul play.
Did you hear every word? We have not cleared anyone. He starts with that, but there's no evidence of foul play. I think that's significant, that no one's been cleared. They're looking for new leads, new evidence. They're going back over things, which is important. Delphi murder case, if they had gone over things, they could have solved that one much less than 5 years. Much less because the information was there. They just needed to check it and recheck it. So that's good that that's happening. I want you to take a look at this video. This was video, again, Nick Barris from Scripps News Nashville got us from that neighborhood, some security footage. I don't know what it is. It almost looks like one of those UFO videos that we've seen, right? But he described the neighborhood at night. It's pitch dark. There are no streetlights in this beautiful neighborhood. But there's something illuminating there, right? There's something, 3 o'clock in the morning, right in the middle of that window of time, midnight when Katie says she goes to sleep, 6 a.m. when she's looking for her son. So again, let's take a listen to Eric Craddock.
So that was the flashlight footage for those who haven't seen. I know there's some people in chat who are new to this. That's the one where it came out that, oh, it looks like people out there with their flashlights.
From that neighborhood.
And then it came out, I'm just going to slow it down so we can kind of look at it slowly. Then it came out like, oh, well, no, it's the trash truck picking up the trash early in the morning. And then it came out from cops that said that it wasn't the trash truck and they can't tell us what it is. Something along the lines of they wouldn't give us like an indication of what it was or not. So I just want to watch this again without the sound and in slow motion. And you guys let me know. I can't see anything. I mean, I'm like, what am I looking at here? But I do find it interesting that the mother claimed the only thing missing from their house was a flashlight. So this is slowed down, so this isn't the real speed. But what exactly are we looking at here? And it does seem like from what law enforcement said there, like we're just going back over things that we've seen in the beginning or that we looked at in the beginning and hoping that something breaks. I hope that this isn't a mystery that goes on like Summer Wells. I couldn't deal. That's the thing is like, it's hard for me to cover missing children's cases, although it is important to get their story out there and exposure. It's very depressing. And I just don't want this to be another Summer Wells case where we've heard absolutely nothing.
Speaking with Nick Barris about that video.
No evidentiary value?
It is of no evidentiary value.
Can you tell me what those lights are?
No.
Why?
Because the investigation remains ongoing.
And so it could play a role down the road depending on developments?
We don't know what we don't know. So yes, it could play a role.
It could play a role is what I got out of that. So yeah, exactly. What is this mess? So he says people walking in the front of lights. Who released that footage? Yeah, who did? Does anyone know the origins of that? All I know is I've seen it on social media. Yeah, pointer lover. It was strange. You know, she knew all his shoes were still at home and the only thing missing was his flashlight. And then we get mixed signals and mixed statements about what he was wearing. But the flashlight that was missing, you know, that was something that she was sure on. Like, I don't even know how many flashlights I have or where they all are. They're scattered all over the place in my house. Office, junk drawer, car, who knows? Garage, I don't know. But right, was that her way of justifying the lights outside? Right, getting ahead of the narrative. And that's where people are saying, like, Katie and Chris keep, you know, pushing their narrative. It's all everything they're saying, they're stating it as facts. Like, I heard a thud and, you know, I yelled up to him, I don't care what you're doing, just go to bed. And he took the trash out. And you know, it's like, but we don't have any actual proof that any of that actually happened. Was he even alive at all that time that she's stating all this was happening? We don't know.
I listened to every word, but I didn't understand it. Do they know what it is and they don't want to say? Because he didn't say that. He was asked directly, do you know what it is? You could say, yes, I do, but I can't tell you. But that's not what he said. So it doesn't have evidentiary value, maybe because they can't identify what it is. Again, where are we in all this? Okay, so I want to get a better idea of this neighborhood, this house, the environment, where he could have gone, where the searchers are actually looking. So we need to bring in our friend from Portland, Oregon, podcast.
I'm going to fast forward the Gray Hughes stuff because all they do is kind of talk about the layout of the house, and Gray gives his opinion that, you know, he ran away possibly. And I just don't think that based off of no scent from the dogs. If you want to watch that, you feel free to go to Court TV or Gray's channel. Not really following Gray's theory personally.
Extremely close to where the house is.
Yeah, and those woods are absolutely just thick. I mean, as you can imagine.
There it is. And
he says something like they should check all the pools around there. And I totally agree with that. I definitely think they should.
They were working towards, which I thought was really significant.
And if there's no routine, then autistic children don't act the same way they're supposed to. When I've had him, there's a routine in my house when I have him. And
okay, so this is the father, Seth, for those who don't know. I've sped it up only one notch. Is it too fast for you guys? It's 1.25. Let me know. Pinky says is the last actual proof of life, Texas Roadhouse. That's what I'm claiming is the last proof of life because law enforcement has not come out stating otherwise. There is rumor that a neighbor saw somebody take the trash out, but it was too dark to tell. And allegedly this neighbor asked law enforcement if that was Sebastian, and they allegedly told her yes, but I don't believe that law enforcement would tell somebody an active investigation going on, whether or not that was actually him or not. And even if they did say yes, I believe that that could also be a lie so that it kind of keeps things under wraps of what they really think is going on personally. So there is a rumor that the cops told the neighbor that, like, yes, that footage you gave us is Sebastian. I'm not there yet. I'm personally calling Texas Roadhouse and them getting in the car together his last proof of life. Mom said she went to check on Sebastian and he wasn't there. She then went to the kitchen to see if he was there. She would have known that. She had to walk through the kitchen to get up to his room. Yeah, there's things like that she has stated, even as like little things like that people have been like, what? That doesn't make sense. Because she did say, she's like, at first I thought he had already gotten up and he was eating breakfast. Well, wouldn't you have seen him, judging by your house layout? Like, how did you just float past the kitchen and not see him?
He's a teenager. You know, you're going to listen. You're going to hear some back talk probably. I mean, they're growing. They're going to rebel some way. They're teenagers, you know, so you're going to listen to it. You're going to have to deal with it. But you still got to remember that you're a parent. And You have to adjust your lifestyle to be able to make sure that they can adjust and learn and still grow. You can't do some of the things that I've seen her do in the past. Most of my discussions were actually taken care with Chris, and Sebastian was supposed to come live with me. Chris was working on Katie on getting her to agree to it, and all I wanted was my son to come live with me.
Now, in a YouTube live stream today with the host of Justin on TikTok, Seth Rogers made some shocking claims about an instance of sexual abuse while Sebastian was living in California with his mother, and why Seth says Chris Proudfoot wanted Sebastian to live with him. Before we play this next clip, you should know Court TV has not independently verified these allegations made by Seth.
There was another CPS incident in California at her house. Katie and Chris let a child into their house that was 5 years older than my son. My son was 7 or 8 at the time, and this kid was 13. She has a habit of not checking on her kid. They were letting this kid play with my son, and they weren't checking on him. And then this kid took my son's innocence, and he molested him.
Worst nightmare.
My son around his daughter, because Chris has turned around into my mother, told my mom, "Your grandson's a pedophile." No, he's not. He's a victim that hasn't got the help that he deserves and that he needs so that he can get over the traumatic incident that has happened to him. That should have never happened underneath their watch to begin with. That's why Chris doesn't want my son around his daughter, because he's scared that my son is going to do the same thing that was done to him under his watch.
That is heartbreaking. Let's bring our guest to make some sense of all of this in Miami, Florida. Body language and communications expert and instructor at the Body Language Institute, Tiffany Lee, is with us. In Pensacola.
I know, Ashley. She said, I don't know if the dad should have put that out for everyone to know, though. I know. It's like, is it relevant? Is it not relevant? That boy probably has absolutely nothing to do with this, someone who essayed him, because I believe that was in California. They're in Tennessee. So it's like Seth, I think, was trying to convey their lack of parenting and maybe lack of care for Sebastian. But at the same time, he's very stressed and he's exhausted. And as far as I've heard, Katie, the biological mother, isn't even in communications with Seth during this whole process. Will not speak to him. And I almost feel like it's oh, well, you want to paint me this way, I'm going to paint you that way and tell them what you did here and there. You know what I mean? How divorced parents can be sometimes. And it's unfortunate because there are some things it's like, yeah, that's the thing. I think Seth is so desperate for answers that, you know, maybe he's saying things that are like, might not have anything to do with it. But, you know, patterns always matter. And in regards to them maybe not being as closely diligent at, you know, watching Sebastian, like what actually did happen. There's so many things that are out on the table. Like, we just don't know. Like, was there an accident that took place, or people have speculated sleep medicine was involved and that's how he passed. Like, we just don't really know. But there are a lot of people who feel the same way, that like maybe Seth shouldn't have stated that. Seth is throwing it all out there. Hard to know what you should or shouldn't say. Just tell when you're in this situation. I'm sure he's mad and frustrated. Right. I don't fault him at all for saying it. We just don't know like where it comes into play, right?
Florida, private investigator Lauren Vellucci, and in Los Angeles, forensic psychiatrist, trial expert, witness, and columnist Dr. Carol Lieberman. Tiffany Lee, I want to begin with you. You've seen Dad here in several circumstances. I see the emotion. I see the frustration. What are you seeing and hearing from Seth Rogers?
Exactly. Everything you just said, Benny. I mean, when I
first started watching clips of him, what we see consistently is until he talks about the sexual assault, his tone is the same. He doesn't necessarily raise his voice or go really low. His tone is consistent. Even his blink rate, the rate at which he's blinking his eyes, is consistent with him being truthful and being honest. But what I will say is whenever he brings up the wife, he does a lip compression, which is where we kind of press our lips together. And that is something that can indicate a strong negative emotion. So definitely watch for that and pay attention, but he really does indicate that there's definitely some tension between the two for sure.
Dr. Carol Lieberman, something happened, right? Something happens. It seems that from what Seth is saying here, if it's true, there is tension in that home. You've got a 15-year-old boy with autism, teenager, allegedly molested. Stepdad has a daughter that's in the house sometimes. Stepdad allegedly accusing Sebastian of being some sort of pedophile and is afraid of this cycle taking place. To me, this is serious stuff we're talking about, Dr. Lieberman.
Yes, absolutely. And also, when he puts his mouth in that way, it's also, closes it like that. It also reflects his trying to prevent himself from saying what he really thinks about his ex-wife. Of course, it's a lot of times autistic children, depending upon where they are on the spectrum and exactly what's wrong, they are more vulnerable to getting sexually abused and being abused in general. It's sad that at that point, something should have happened at that point, ideally, that Sebastian should have been taken away from the mother and stepfather. And obviously he would have been a lot better off with his real biological father. And there's also another story about how the mother allowed him to be exposed. This is a different incident, but allowed him to be exposed to a man who had been in jail for pedophilia. Now, there's I have not heard specifically that he did, in fact, that this other man did abuse Sebastian too. But the father was really upset that why is she letting a known pedophile around our son?
Lauren Vellucci, and this has been, I think, the theme from the beginning, right? That children don't just vanish. They don't just disappear. Something happened. Now we're hearing about a little bit about potential tension in this home, a reason for him to perhaps want to leave, a reason for there to be conflict, a reason for something to happen. And I think this is an avenue, as they've described everyone as cooperating, but I think investigators would need to sort of peel back the layers of everything that was happening here.
Absolutely. And Hendersonville is actually a town that I know a good bit about. I have a dear friend that grew up there. It's also where Taylor Swift went to high school. And it's a very safe community. It's a great place to raise a family. So as you were saying that, I was thinking that when Seth Rogers last night said that he mostly communicated with the stepdad, that was odd to me in a lot of reasons. And it signals to me that there is a tumultuous relationship. So if he was potentially going to live back with his father, this is sad, but we have seen it so many times that the mom or dad or family member potentially not wanting them, but not wanting the other spouse to have the child. And that's the worst case scenario, but it has happened, sadly, and we know about that. So that is a concern as well.
Yeah, I agree. And I think understanding all the dynamics and anything that's happening in their lives, because it can go many different ways. It can give him a reason to want to get out of the house as well, but there has to be a reason. Children don't just vanish. Everyone's staying with us. When we come back, we're going to talk more about the parents. These are the three people closest in the world to Sebastian Rogers, who is still missing.
Do I come up for school? About 9 o'clock, told him to go to bed. And he said, come out of his room where he was playing. And he said, all right, good night, Nana. Good night, puppies. Love you. He went to bed. He was doing something in his room because about an hour later I heard some noise. And I was like, I don't care what you're doing in there, but go to sleep. And about midnight, I got up and I went to bed. And 6 o'clock, I went to wake him up for school Monday morning. And that's when he went here.
So there's stepdad and mom's the one really talking, right? Describing what happened that day. That's on the Chronicles of Olivia. Really fascinating interview. I showed that clip, or a bigger piece of that clip, to Sebastian's dad, Seth, on the show last night. And here's part of his reaction to that.
I'm not here to sling mud, but why is she asking Chris to verify what she did on Sunday when Chris wasn't here on Sunday?
Okay, so now let's play a longer piece of that clip so you can see the dynamic between Katie and Chris as Katie's talking about what happened that day. Let's watch.
We went and picked up our niece. Yeah, I got a call and asked if I could go and pick her up, and I did. And so we went.
I pause it because, you know, she looks towards Chris. We went to pick up our niece and like verifies with him, like, yep, that's right. When they were on a podcast, they, you know, she stated it as like a fact, like there was no hesitation. There was no need for her to confirm with Chris. So here it's already an example of a very small aspect of their story kind of changing slightly. So when I say, like, I feel like Katie changes like who she is depending on who she's talking to. That interview that I'm referring to where she said it so like, you know, matter of fact, like didn't have to get confirmation from Chris. They were not on camera. It was like how I am right now. They were on somebody's channel, I think Duchess something, and she just said it and there was no hesitation, didn't need to clarify with Chris. He didn't need to confirm it or butt in and say anything. But they're not on camera. So sometimes it might be easier for somebody to kind of say something, or maybe she was looking at him already, like off camera. But here they're on camera. She does a lot of looking at the table during this interview. And then, like Seth said, like, why does she have to look to Chris to confirm, you know, what they did that day? So just something I noticed too, very slight change in their kind of story, but I don't understand the hesitation here.
I did that and went to BJ's. Had a good time there. He ate a colossal popcorn. Came home to put groceries away because we bought snacks because, you know, he's 15, snacks. We went to the bowling alley. And then from there we went to dinner. Came home. He took out the trash because that's his chore. He takes the can to the end of the driveway. About 9 o'clock, told him to go to bed. He just come out of his room where he was playing, and he said, "All right, good night, Mama. Good night, puppies. Love you." And went to bed. He was doing something in his room because about an hour later I heard some noise, and I was like, "I don't care what you're doing in there, but go to sleep." And about midnight, I got up and I went to bed. And 6 o'clock, I went to wake him up for school Monday morning. And that's when he went here.
Okay, our guest back with us, Tiffany Lee, Dr. Carol Lieberman, Lauren Vellucci. Tiffany Lee, your thoughts, anything that you saw from mom, from stepdad?
For sure, it's a lot of what I didn't see. So when you're watching this clip and you understand what's going on, I would expect to see, and I'm sure you all can agree, more emotion. You know, if this was your 15-year-old son who is now missing, I would expect to see more visible emotion, maybe even some shaking and an actual tear. And we're just not seeing that here. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. And something else I'm noticing is that the interaction between Chris and Katie, they don't make eye contact.
That's a good point, Pointer Lover. So Katie just gave the whole, like, yeah, what we did on Sunday. And just like her interview on that Duchess channel, she never mentioned the 3-hour call. So we have numerous interviews of her, you know, stating the events that day. And 2 out of the ones that I can think of, she doesn't mention this 3-hour call. Why? You know, because when she does talk about talking to Chris for 3 hours, she kind of makes it seem like it's a regular thing, which will be able to be determined with phone records. You know, they'll be able to test like that pattern. Like, okay, well, Chris was out of town this week and this week and this week. How many times is Katie on the phone with him for 3 hours? You know, like, what is the pattern there?
At all. I would think if this was your stepson and your son, they would maybe be a little more closer, physically supporting each other. But it's just like this kind of random, she looked over this way when he's talking, he's not looking at her, she's not looking at him. She does kind of glance over in his direction as almost to get approval for what.
Yeah, she's seeking approval of Chris a lot in interviews where they're on camera. Again, they did a whole interview where it's just their hands. They're not even on camera. So bizarre. And Tony, I agree. And that's another thing that's kind of hasn't set right with me, but it's not something that I just want to be like, see, she's guilty. But it's the truth. Like, she doesn't have much of a reaction to the situation. I have not seen her wipe a wet tear once in any of the interviews. She just is kind of like matter of fact, just kind of almost like Madeline Soto's mom. It's giving mashup vibes of Candace Wells and Jen Soto. I know, it really is. And yeah, I'd love to see the phone pattern. Phone call is suspicious. I agree, Bubba.
She's saying, but there's really something that feels off here. But my biggest thing is the lack of emotion that is being shown.
Dr. Carol Learman, what did you see? What did you notice? What's significant here?
Well, there's a huge difference between this couple and Sebastian's father. I mean, his father is acting like someone generally acts when their son is missing, and they're very devastated by it. I think they looked like robots, first of all, no feeling. But in particular, I think she looks like the typical woman who has been abused. I've treated a number of women who have been abused, and it's like this, not only robot-like, but her eyes down, deferred. Even when she looks at him, it's like kind of for approval, but it's more than that. It's like that she has been, she's afraid. There's some fear there, and I think that he has a lot of control over her. And when he was telling Sebastian's father, yes, let's have Sebastian live with you, she would have felt betrayed. If she wants Sebastian living with her, she would have felt betrayed by Chris. And that would have led to a lot of tension in the household.
Lauren, does the story itself make sense to you? Are there other things that you need to fill in what happened here?
It's a lot of detail that is not necessary. And I can tell you that happens when people are lying, like the size of that popcorn.
Colossal.
Colossal. It doesn't add any weight or any kind of anything to finding your son. And I need to know why these people are not searching. And I need to know why they've left town.
Tiffany Lee, Dr. Carol Learman, Lauren Vellucci, we're out of time for tonight, but obviously this story continues as the search for Sebastian continues.
All right, guys. Yeah, prayers for Sebastian. Telematics in their vehicles would reveal much. Yes. And I believe they told Nancy Grace the year of their vehicles, and they are newer, like not like super new. I believe like 2017 or something like that. Like, but as far as what it would have, like the black box that cars nowadays have, where they can, like we seen in the Alex Murdaugh trial, we could track his whole route, the speed he was going that night, and what time he arrived here and there. That will be able to be determined in this case as well, I believe. Pretty sure. But guys, there's so much to kind of go through. I kind of want to leave it around an hour and a half mark. And yeah, I agree with that private investigator, that the extra, 2017 and 2021. Thank you so much, Pointer Lover. So hers, I think, was 2017 and Chris's was 2021. Didn't they ask Chris like his year or whatever? And he was like, oh, I don't know the year. Like, wouldn't give the detail. It was just a weird answer. The whole, I heard a thud. And then in another interview, she describes it as a noise, so it's like, and I yelled up to him, I don't care what you're doing in there, just go to bed. It's like, one, why don't you go see what that noise was? Two, like, why don't you care what he's doing? It is just kind of weird. And then she doesn't say that again in another interview. So she kind of changes it up. But we're going to be following this case, guys. There's a lot out there. Like I said, Court TV has like numerous segments on this with clips that have been taken from the interviews with social media people. So they've definitely been able to kind of consolidate the information that's been going around. I know Pascal did an interview with Seth. Seth has been on numerous channels doing interviews. I've been watching Justice for All, Justin, Clutch My Pearls. He also does that channel. He's been doing good coverage on this and consistent coverage. That's where I kind of came up watching his live stream. I kind of came up with the whole, like, I wonder if that phone call was even a phone call, because literally who is on the phone with their spouse for 3 hours on a Sunday night? It just is kind of odd. And like I said, maybe it's a regular thing that will be able to be determined with their phone records. And, that can dispel rumors right there. Like, no, they do this a lot. That's just what they do. We see it here. But yeah, we're following this case, guys. Like, we have to keep his name and face out there. I don't want to be negative, but I want to be realistic, and it's just like not really looking good, with missing persons and child cases. Like, it just isn't ever really good when it's been this long and they can't find him. I believe if he ran away, they would have been able to find him by now. If he was lured away, that's still on the table. We just don't really know. We really don't know much. Did he get out of the vehicle during an argument and storm off? Well, then why are all his shoes that he owns accounted for at home? So it's just very mysterious. What are those lights? Are they flashlights? Who is that? We just don't know. A lot of mysteries here, but I really appreciate Pizza Chemist donating those memberships, and everyone else who donated. Mike and Sherry, thank you so much. Roxanne, you bought me dinner the other night with Cash App. I really appreciate you. I was not feeling well, and that really meant a lot that you did that. So I wanted to thank you as well. Hi. And hi to everyone who joined. If I didn't say your name, I appreciate you being here. And we'll talk very soon. Hopefully we can get some updates. The only updates that I've been seeing is they're going back over, places that they've searched previously, and they're looking through ponds and water areas. That's all I really know. I am feeling better. It's kind of something that is coming and going. Like right now, I'm very exhausted. Like I'm ready to kind of lay down. I can give you more updates on all that when I can say, but I appreciate you all being here. So Thursday night, I believe we'll be going live again. Usually we do our Watts live streams. If there's significant information to report with Sebastian, I'd rather go live on Sebastian on Thursday and then maybe do the Watts live Friday. But that's still up in the air. I know you guys like my weekly deep dives into the Watts case, so I don't want to just abandon it. But there's other things going on. We are following the Chad Daybell trial, which has just started. They concluded their jury selection and all that. So we got to be following their weekly updates in that case, in the trial. Lots of stuff going on. So we'll be discussing it all when we can. And again, we'll be talking very soon. And I appreciate everyone who's sending their well wishes and all that. And thank you, Kimmy. Appreciate you being here. And yeah, thanks so much. Hit that like button. Again, it's not for me. It's to get Sebastian's story out there. And good night, everybody.